Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning in his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on.
In General Averell's hometown of Bath, New York, I found a statue of a Yankee soldier. His handsome face hardly shows a scar or a wrinkle from his trials at Gettysburg and Antietam. Here, in the town of Union, West Virginia, is the statue of the Confederate soldier on a 10-foot pedestal of Vermont marble. As the Monroe Watchman aptly observed after the dedication ceremony in 1901, the statue has the features of a young man, for of such were the armies of the Confederacy chiefly comprised. And well has it been said that our great Civil War was an old man's quarrel and a young man's fight.
General Averell, by last reports of scouts in the valley, was at Martinsburg with his cavalry. I think it probable, from the success that has hitherto attended his expeditions, that whenever the weather permits, they will be renewed. Every preparation must be made to resist them. The main cause of his success appears to me, at this distance, to be owing to terror with which he has inspired the troops. Robert E. Lee, commanding.
In the spring of 1864, General Grant would send 2 columns out of West Virginia into the heart of Southwest Virginia. One under the command of General George Crook would be sent towards Dublin, Virginia, and his goal was to destroy the New River Railroad Bridge over the New River, which was very wide and deep at this point. And it carried the Virginia and Tennessee Railroad, which was a lifeline between East Tennessee and Richmond and all of Eastern Virginia. Grant, as you know from all of his prior campaigns, always wanted to go and take out the Confederate logistics. And this is just what Crook was going to do when he ends up fighting the Battle of Cloyd's Mountain, and he will succeed in cutting that bridge.
General Crook's forces, of which Colonel Oley's brigade of cavalry, about 400 strong, formed a part, found the enemy posted in force, several thousand strong, at Cloyd's Mountain under the command of General Albert Jenkins. They were entrenched on a wooden spur behind rail breastworks, with their guns so placed as to sweep a broad field that fronted the works, while a knee-deep brook wound around the foot of the steep slope crowned by the rifle pits. "The enemy is in force and in strong position," said Crook, lowering his field glass. "He may whip us, but I guess not."
The Ohio veterans charged up that hill amid a shower of shot and shell, amid the shout of victors and the moans of the vanquished, amid the dead and the dying. The hillside horse-strewn up to the cannon's mouth, bearing back the rebels in confusion and sending the leaden messengers of death thick as hail amid the foes of our country. That was the hour of victory. It was changed from a battle to a complete rout. It was no longer 2 armies contending for the supremacy, but was the pursuing and the pursued. The surging billows of battle rolled on toward Dublin. Chaplain A.A. Windsor, 91st Ohio Infantry.
Crook is going to fight a battle at Cloyd's Mountain on the 9th. And then on the 10th, he's going to move towards the bridge, where the bridge will be finally captured in May 10th, 64, and burned. The bridge sat on a series of stone pillars across the river. They'd been built in 1856, and he didn't have enough explosives to blow those pillars up. He tried to blast them with artillery shells, but the solid shot just bounced off those pillars. So he was able to destroy the tracks of the bridge, and get the bridge falling down, but he wasn't able to destroy the underpinning of it.
Moving off on his right flank is going to be General William Woods Averell, commanding a small cavalry division. He's tasked with going after the salt and lead mines of Southwest Virginia. He's going to be unable to do this when he's going to find his way blocked by a significantly larger force under the command of General William E. Grumble Jones and John Hunt Morgan.
Averell's coming in from his failed attack at Saltville. He's going to try to get into Withwille. The Confederates used the railroad to come up and offload troops at Withwille and block him at Cove Mountain, which is about 5 miles north of Withwille. And they're going to fortify that pass, and Averell tries to bust through the pass. In fact, is wounded, he takes a severe head wound, bleeding like crazy, and is forced to retreat.
Averell fought his men elegantly, tried time and time to get them to charge, but our boys would give them no time to form. If I had been 1 hour later, this place and the lead mines would have been lost. If we had 2 more hours of daylight, we could have captured the whole force. General John Hunt Morgan.
Realizing further fighting would result only in a loss of his command, Averell ordered retreat. For the second consecutive night, the Federal commander withdrew secretly from a battlefield. He urged battle-weary troops over rugged mountain paths in the darkness. About dawn, the cavalry finally arrived at Crab Orchard. For half a day, the troops rested. Then, hoping to join General Crook, they pushed through driving rain to Dublin Depot. On the evening of May 11th, Averell's troops stumbled into Dublin and found that Crook had already advanced toward New River. On the following day, the Federal cavalry continued eastward and discovered that heavy rains had swollen the New River into a raging torrent. With Morgan in close pursuit and all bridges destroyed, Averell's column had little choice but to ford the muddy river. The troops unhesitatingly plunged their mounts into surging rapids. The treacherous current swept several horses to their death in deep water.
I do not recollect having witnessed a more thrilling scene than when I reached the bank and saw men and horses struggling in the surging water. Several men were drowned. After crossing, the 2nd West Virginia witnessed the forces of Morgan and Jones baffled and unable to stem the current, which had now risen so as to be impassable. At Christiansburg, General Averell communicated with General Crook at Blacksburg and was directed to destroy the railroad east of the town. This was done for a distance of 4 miles in that direction. Joseph J. Sutton, 2nd Regiment, West Virginia Cavalry Volunteers.
And then Crook makes probably the worst decision of his life. Instead of following up the valley to meet with Sigel, Crook turns inland and heads back towards his supply line. And goes over Salt Pond Mountain. It's raining like crazy. It's all mud. They call it Mud Mountain. He goes over the mountain and gets out that way. Averell, though, he's a day behind, following the same route that Crook was retreating on, but a day behind. The Confederates now are ready for him. They block the passes, so he can't go over Salt Pond Mountain. He's got to go around the side of Salt Pond Mountain, and then using a trail, takes his force of almost 2,000 horsemen up the side of the mountain in a thunderstorm at night. Almost a complete vertical climb up the side of that mountain, one of the most amazing cavalry feats anywhere in the Civil War.
We began the ascent of a steep mountain and soon struck the trail that led into a deep, wild, dark ravine, out of which we could not get except by climbing a trail up the face of a steep mountain. It got so dark and it rained so hard and was so slippery that the only way we could keep on this perilous mountain path was to hold onto the tail of a horse in front and the rein of the horse behind. God only knows how we got out of that mountain gulch. We got out sometime toward morning. Joseph J. Sutton.
But they did not join up with Sigel in the attack in the valley.
May 16, 1864, Monday, Woodstock, Virginia. I awoke refreshed. Cannon, wagons, and stragglers were still training through the town. I got a wretched meal in the house. Sigel got news that Averell and Crook had been successful in their raid upon the Tennessee Railroad, having beaten the enemy with a loss to them of 900 wounded, killed, and missing. To one who told me of this news, I replied, "We are doing a good business in this department. Averell is tearing up the Virginia and Tennessee Railroad, while Sigel is tearing down the Valley Turnpike." This took and spread like wildfire and was repeated all over the department.
The May 1864 expedition against the Virginia and Tennessee Railroad was a relatively insignificant excursion within a highly eventful war. Overshadowed by larger armies and more consequential campaigns, it failed to receive public recognition then as now. Nevertheless, the courage and vivacity, the suffering and despair of the Civil War soldier emerge as vividly from Cloyd's Mountain and New River Bridge as from Gettysburg and Appomattox. Through the years, most of the men who marched, fought, and died in this campaign have been forgotten. Now, only the mountains remember.